PR Connections Radio presents.
Hello, thanks for joining me. Another episode of Liberating Menopause. I'm your host, Lisa Vasquez, and I'm opening up this conversation, amplifying voices, speaking for women all over. But my focus is women in the workplace, women in city life, in rural life, all lives. Women in the workplace. There's so many women in the workplace. And I really want to talk about today. It's going to be an exciting episode because I have a really great guest who's going to add to this conversation. So the last episode, I was discussing these hidden symptoms that occur during perimenopause. And so I'm teaching and educating. And again, this is informational and educational to help you understand as you walk toward the road of menopause. I don't want you to hit that wall and all of a sudden everything has piled up and it's all there. Walking through this, starting between the ages of 35 all the way up into 51 when menopause normally hits. But as we walk there, there's so many things to be recognized. And this is where I talk about your hormones are speaking, and we need to listen to them. So today, I'm talking about when anxiety attacks. It's a warfare, and it's a hidden warfare, just like when we have hot flashes, all these different symptoms that occur. But talking about in the concrete jungle, focusing on city life, a lot of city life, because with energy in the city, as I mentioned before in the past, I've grown up in Chicago. So, and again, as I take you on my journey through this, I always explain, because of walking through this journey with a lot of women, I can only go back now and reflect how my life had developed through these stages and the wisdom and that I've gathered through this. And so here again, I'm out in Chicago growing up. I just started my job, 20 years old. I just graduated X-ray school. I'm starting my job and radiology. So here I am in the city, and growing up in the city, there's so many walls. There's so many buildings. There's not a lot of opened areas of a lot of trees. I mean, unless you go to the suburbs of Chicago or you have a really full backyard, I mean, there's not a lot of big places that I had to go to really find that kind of energy flowing, being outside. So what I would do, because not understanding why, but knowing that the energy kept hitting me back. I mean, I grew up with a lot of friends, and as we would have discussions, it's like being on a roller coaster. The conversation stayed the same. I mean, we just came and gather in these party groups speaking, but the issues were the same issues going around like a roller coaster. I mean, and that's when I started seeing how it was like a boomerang. Even though we talked about it to release it, it kept hitting us back, and we kept getting hit back by it. So as we're growing through this, I'm noticing this. I don't know how much they did, but I did. And I seen the boomerang because I'm trying to get rid of this. I'm trying to expand, and my environment was big. What I'm dreaming of is I needed a bigger environment. And again, the energy that kept coming back to me was like, how do you release this? So where I worked at was right off of Lakeshore Drive. So before I would go home and put myself, after working with a lot of people, and again, I'm young, so I don't understand this, but I know that I need some peace. I need to protect this peace. I've just worked with all these people. I've collaborated with people at work. And so instead of going home and hitting the traffic and getting stuck in all that I-55, I think it is, the Stevenson Expressway, I would go to the planetarium because it was right around the corner. It was like a 10-minute ride. And I would sit there and all I would do was stare at the city. So if you know Chicago and if you know where the planetarium is, what you're doing, you're across on the lake and all you do is see that magnificent mile, where everything is happening. And I would just sit there focusing, enjoying the energy of the openness, because the lake is all there. So anything in my thoughts that I'm thinking about is really being released out there, and it's not coming back at me. And that's when I started realizing how this can suffocate you, especially if you are in tune with yourself. And again, like I said, I was learning the wisdom of this energy. I didn't know why I felt so much better there, but I knew it really helped me. And so after about 2 hours, hour and a half sitting there, then I'd hit the streets and get back into the traffic, and then I'd get home. And then when I would get home, it was so weird because, as you know, in Chicago, if you live there, we don't have, sometimes the sun is really hard to find because we have so many cloudy days. So by the time I get home, right as I go up my stairs, I would see the last piece of the sun. It's all the way in the west, getting ready to set. So I'm saying goodbye to it, knowing it's headed to Hawaii and all those other states out that way, but just seeing that, I miss the sun because I've been at work all day. So understanding this was so complicated, but now that I know and I enjoyed it so much, I was always looking for places to protect my peace. So then every year I'd go on vacation. I'd spend 2 weeks in California on the beach. I would come there like a beach bum. I mean, I was in Chicago. I was pretty well off as I graduated X-ray school. I had a house, I had a car, I had a career. I was young and I didn't know what to do with it all. So I really had to focus on this because this all came to me and I'm like, wow, what do you do with a house at 20 years old? I really just wanted a car. But all this stuff that you had to deal with. So every year I take my vacation and spend 2 weeks in California, living on the beach, taking the bus to get there, enjoying and just taken away from who I am in Chicago just to be normal and enjoying that beach air. And now the nostalgia of smelling coconut oil or things like that, listening to birds, I imagine seagulls in the air. I mean, I'm able to bring this into myself when I am not surrounded with good energy like that. So practicing this and enjoying and absorbing that, of course, is so good for the mentality and the mind. And so now with women in the workplace and everywhere, really, we don't really notice stress like that. I mean, and especially when we're young. I mean, the challenges that we go through, they're not bell ringers that say, hey, you're about to, start doing some damage to your body because you're building all this stress up and inflammation that you don't even know is happening. And these are the things that can sneak up on you and attack you. And, the inflammatory in your gut health, things that we are not taught to invest in our health. We're used to going to somebody to help us learn about our health and hoping that that position is going to be able to help us, but really it's not to that ability. We have to help ourselves. So we have to go there, and it's our choices and what we do to protect our peace, to keep our stress down, to be in environments and bring yourself into those environments that are going to be more calming and relaxing. So today, the exciting part is bringing in Dr. Tamberley Conway. She's the founder and CEO of the Conservation Connections. And she is very extraordinary. She's actually coming out with a documentary called The Silent Healer. She loves nature dosing, and she has studied how the energy of the trees and the plants and all these great things, what they do for the body, mind, and most of all, spirit. And as today is that Good Friday where there is a lot of solemn reflection, I thought this was a great time to bring out Dr. Tamberley. So we're going to say hello and welcome, and thank you for joining me here today at PR Connection Radio. Hi, Tamberley.
Hi, Lisa. It's just fabulous to join you. Thank you so much for the invitation, and especially on this special, very spiritual day. And it's just a joy to be here. And as you can see, I'm in nature, getting my nature dose.
Yes. So really, tell me. So I met Tamberlay at another networking conference, which was so really cool. I mean, the women there, the speakers, it was so empowering. But when I was talking and listening to Tamberlay speak, it was incredible when she took us into a snapshot of her documentary when she was standing in that forest. I mean, I live in Las Vegas, and I'm sorry again, I don't have a lot of that here. So it was so really cool. And I wanted to talk to her because she does work with a lot of women well, she does work in the workplace, trying to bring this type of energy there. As we know, the stress of getting off the bus, it's hard to drive down there. So you're always running around, jumping in elevators, running out, bumping into people, carrying your coffee, spilling it, whatever. There's always a hustle and a bustle. And so Tamberley, tell us what inspired you to focus on empowering women in this urban environment. How do they find and protect that peace? Because today, even more than ever, with so many concerns, it's so important to understand how to practice this.
Absolutely. Well, I had the honor of serving at the U.S. Forest Service in Washington, D.C. for 6 years. So I was in the heart of the urban jungle, but also there were a number of green spaces surrounding me, and everyone there in the city. And I did notice that that made quite a difference. And in my work at the U.S. Forest Service, I really focused on connecting people to nature for health and well-being. I was actually working with the doctors who were writing nature prescriptions and to help circumvent some of the medications, it could be in conjunction with. And so I did a lot of work in meeting the needs of diverse audiences, and some were women, and I had a strong focus on women in the workplace and also in medical or healthcare settings. And when I left the Forest Service in January of 2020, I really started with Conservation Connections, serving as a certified nature and forest therapy guide. I really started to seek out women, especially I like to call it the mandatory pause, as my dear friend Lauren LaHave says, when COVID hit us and everything was paused. I was actually guiding in a remote fashion, as we are here now, and I would guide people into this type of nature connection through a standard sequence of invitations. So inviting people to really be connected to their senses and to slow down to the rhythm of nature. And then I found this incredible group of women through Lauren LaHave. She's really tapped into helping women in many areas of their lives. And when that happened, and I started to notice how the work that I was doing and helping them to just notice the importance of bringing nature into their lives each and every day, and to getting actually a nature dose, which we know now it is very important that we as humans, we are nature. And knowing that, over 90% of our population in the US lives in urban areas. And so that was always a big focus for me at the Forest Service, and continues to be today, because I know the stresses that people face, both mentally, psychologically, physiologically. And so how do we utilize nature connection to help us maintain homeostasis, maintain a balance in our entire systems? And so it's been a real passion for me, because I've noticed a real transformation in some of the women who are in this beautiful circle with Lauren, and I've just noticed that they become excited about learning more. And having the honor of serving as a speaker at Lauren's event, at the Own It event, only a few weeks ago, I met you, and I was able to speak with over 300 women in person, and so many people came up to me afterwards and just, I want to know more. So I'm excited to be here with you and share more. I really appreciate the opportunity to do so.
And I was one of those people that came up there. I really did want to know more. It was the energy. I mean, if you would have seen Tamberley really flowing around that stage, and the energy and just the beauty of that green, it was just like incredibly beautiful. And so, speaking on how what is it that how can we bring this to the attention of women in the workplace, bring it to corporate's attention that, there's so much happening in that employment circle of women that are not having the support that women need, because it was always more of a man's world in the workplace. And so now that we're trying to change this for the future, because so many 75.54 million people are women working in the work labor force. So this is why I speak so much about this, because I want to break down those walls and open this up, because a lot of damage, as I grew up in the radiology field, looking through that lens of destruction and disease, you really want to know how can we help this? What can we change? And it's hard to bring this to people without really bringing that deep focus into how this really helps protect them and lowering that inflammation. I know you were talking about in this documentary how trees. I mean, I love trees. I love being outdoors. And so, you have beautiful green areas. And now, remember that if you have plants and you speak to them, the beauty that comes out of them. And you also know if you have a plant and you ignore it. I hate when I go to the store sometimes and they have a plant sitting there and it's dead. You got so many people, but it's dead because they're not paying attention to it. And I just want to help it, because it's how you talk to a plant that's really going to give it its growth, right? Just like we are nature, as you said, we're spirit first. We need to connect to that ground. We need to root back in it. Otherwise, we have desolate areas where the trees are dying. They're all broken. And, in a lot of communities in the urban world, those city parts exist. But then there's so many communities that are rebuilding those desolate areas by restructuring it and raising vegetable gardens and bringing a community into play, and the happiness that comes out of that. And just the fact that that dirt, as desolate as it looks, but now it's flourishing because of all the support of the spirit of everybody's involvement in that community building it. So how do you think that bringing this into the workplace? I mean, there's rooftop things that can be done. Tell me about how you do that.
Sure. Well, one of the aspects of urban areas is that they're built environments. And when humans build, oftentimes they're building spaces that are not in alignment with our actual neurological systems and our psychological systems. So you see a lot of like repetitiveness and also linear structures. And in nature, one of the beautiful things about trees and grass and anything in nature has fractal patterns. So nothing is really like repetitive. There are all these fractal patterns, and those fractal patterns actually help to bring a level of rest and relaxation to our minds and to our mental well-being. And so one of the things that we're finding in urban settings is, noise pollution, light pollution, this constant barrage of stressful situations coming in at us. And actually, we bring it home to us as well. So a lot of times in our own homes, in our cars, we're always like in a box. We're in a box, and moving from one box to another. And so if we can just take time to step away from our desk, from our laptops, from our phones, or even take your phone outside or take your laptop outside, because just being in nature and being surrounded by all of the sensory connections can actually help to reboot your neurological system. And there's something called attention restoration theory. And so what happens is when we look at, say, a tree, or look down at the grass and see all these fractal patterns, maybe just taking some breaths and coming back into, again, a balance, it actually allows us to be more productive. And that's what people want to be in the workplace. They want to be more productive. They want to be more creative. And that's exactly what nature does for us. Nature also helps us to build our intuition, for instance. And so when we take a few moments. It could be 10 minutes just to go outside. And I was in urban forestry, and I'm also a certified arborist. So I take care of trees that take care of people. And so we know that in cities, we call these urban forests, and they might be small patches, but even the few trees in an area can be really powerful in helping us to reconnect to the natural world, even in a really urban environment. I remember stopping at the metro station in Metro Center in DC, and there were a few trees around the area. And during a conference there, an environmental justice conference, we actually held a forest therapy session, about a 30-minute session, around these individual trees. There were women crying because of the profound connection they were having with these individual trees. So nature's around us everywhere. I would also recommend bringing nature indoors, because we know that plants, greenery, even imagery of nature, and also essential oils. There's a lot of research around how just breathing in. So one of the things that happens in forest therapy or forest bathing is bathing in the atmosphere of the forest. And the Japanese in the early 80s discovered that trees actually emit these volatile chemicals in the air called phytoncides. It's almost like the essential oils that we get from plants and trees. But they're these volatile chemicals that we can't see, and they're actually the immune system, the immune function of trees. So they can warn other trees that there's an insect or disease, and they're kind of emitting these phytoncides. But what the cool thing they found is that when we humans breathe them in or they absorb into our skin, they reduce our cortisol levels, and they increase our natural killer cells that fight off cancer and other autoimmune diseases. And we know that autoimmune diseases and hormonal imbalances, that it's just ravaging our nation today. And so even just being able to put a diffuser in your office, just so that you're smelling these aromas of, you can do any aromas, but if you do pine, cedar, cypress, those actually have those phytoncides that are really helping to reduce your cortisol levels and reduce stress. That is really connected to so many of those chronic diseases that we're facing today, and stress related to physiological stress, related to mental and emotional stress. So being able to transform your interior environment, like putting again some imagery, bringing in some plants, talking to them like Lisa is recommending right now, it really does help. It helps plant and it helps you too. So we know that when we nurture nature, nature nurtures us. It's very much a reciprocal effect. There's reciprocity there. So, we often take for granted what nature does for us, and nature is critical. We know that we need nature. We need 120 minutes of nature every week, and that is intentional nature connection, like just going out and sitting under a tree, sitting on a park bench, sitting maybe on a balcony, or go up to a rooftop. You mentioned rooftop gardens. That's happening now throughout many urban areas. And a lot of times they're taking these like small kind of vacant lots and infusing these vacant lots with urban gardens and, fresh foods. And so anything that you can do to get that external nature connection, and also thinking about your internal nature connection. Because nowadays we're not eating enough fruits and vegetables. We're not fortifying our systems. We're eating processed foods. And this is going to affect your hormones as well. There's a lot of research showing that what we're ingesting, it's not what we were meant to consume. And so our bodies don't know what to do. They're confused. So if we replace a lot of the processed foods with, something that is nutritious and delicious, we're going to start to see our microbiome change. And our microbiome is related to gut health, is related to brain health and cognition and mental and emotional health. So the more we can feed our first brain, which is our gut, then the more that our second brain is going to function and is going to be vibrant and have a lot of vitality. So those are just some of the things that I would recommend, is finding a sweet spot, finding a safe, comfortable space outside of your building that you can just go, and you call that your sit spot, and where you can just go and sit for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 20 if you get a chance. Go eat your lunch outside, because that's going to be a reboot to your neurological system that is connected to your hormones, your body, your physiology of your system. So those are some tips I would say that we could do on a daily basis.
Yes, and it's so important because it is feeding mind, body, and spirit. And that's why, again, today is such a great day to reflect on the spiritual side of the aspect, because the spirit is a lot of what we forget about ourselves, that knowing that we are spirit first. And that really, that's a big layer. I mean, it's so important to have that healed. I mean, and the only way spirit lives, having that connection with nature, feeling the wind blowing in the air, blowing things out of your, away from you. I mean, I just love, the whispers of the wind. I mean, I just love being outside. I really enjoy, my spiritual nature and how much I am intact with it. The music. I mean, the music that the birds give. I mean, Einstein said that the next path to our natural healing process is through vibrational sounds and hearing, that music. It's opening pathways in our bodies, things that haven't been opened up before. So by concentrating and taking this in, absorbing it, taking that moment to protect your peace is so important. I mean, inflammation can have such a big effect on women's health. And that's why it's so important to recognize it, the chronic inflammation, the acute inflammation. I mean, we need that. That's when you cut yourself and you see it cut open and now it's getting red around it. That's a good part of the inflammation, helping you out. But then the other one, the chronic inflammation that builds up in you, that can destroy and destruct and lead into so many bad pathways in your health. But as I was saying, young women in this perimenopause cycle, they're just walking through it and not recognizing that it's being built up. And this is why I bring this to your attention today with Tamberley here, because being outdoors, that's the best really medicine we can actually have to cure and help our spiritual nature. I mean, building it up, that's what's most forceful for us. Then comes the food. And as we know, and as I said, everything on the plate that we eat is not everything on the plate, because we need our careers in order, our finances, our relationships, the spirituality, all that built together creates that good digestion that's going to, let it all flow through. So can you share some of your favorite tips on things that you like to do, because you're always out in different, like when you were out in, was it Korea that you were out in studying, doing this documentary? Tell me about that documentary, because I'm hoping that we can post your link on our website so that they can hit on it just to see your really cool documentary. So tell me about that. Tell me about when you were in that episode, feeling with the people, the energy of the green. Because they're building a lot of that out, you told me, for the senior communities, right? To bring more health and vitality to the senior mentality, instead of having them just sitting in rooms or, at a checkerboard or, it's really building energy and creating a lot of good self-care for them, right, Tamberley?
Absolutely. And I had the honor of caring for my grandmother. She was in an assisted living community for 2 years, and between the ages of 97 and 99. And I was there almost every day. I would lead programs around nature connection, movement and motion, bringing in the sensory engagement. And that was around the time that I had the opportunity to visit Korea, South Korea. And I I met with Dr. Wansop Shin, who is one of the world leaders in forest therapy. And in their country, they have established something called the Forest Welfare Act and the Korea Forest Welfare Institute. And under the institute, they've created national forest therapy centers. There are also privatized forest therapy centers throughout the nation as well, but they've actually taken it to their national level. So on some of their national forests, they've actually created these forest therapy centers, state-of-the-art facilities. And the beauty is that they work with local communities where they harvest fresh foods, and a lot of it's farm to table, and they'll bring in these fresh foods, to supplement their forest therapy programs. They also offer these programs from cradle, I'd say pre-cradle, because they do prenatal programs all the way to grade. They actually have some burial forests there in their country as well. And what I was really inspired by is that the elder population in Korea actually inspired this movement because they started noticing dementia, Parkinson's, Alzheimer's related issues throughout their country. And so they started conducting a lot of research around how nature, and especially forests and forest therapy, can support seniors or elders in their communities. And then they started creating these forest therapy centers. So I went to some of these amazing spaces back in February of 24. And then I had the honor of attending the World Forum on Forest Therapy and serving as a presenter there in October of 2024. And during that time, I brought with me the Stay True Creative Productions team. It's a media productions team that is a part of Laura Hobbs Network. And they came for 2 weeks. We went on a pre-World Forum of Forest Therapy event tour. For a week, we visited all of these different national forest therapy centers and some cultural centers as well. And then post the World Forum, we also visited another amazing island that is well known for their forest therapy efforts. And it was just an incredible journey. We learned a lot from actually some of the elders and from some of the programs that they actually conduct for senior populations there. And so they guided us through those particular programs so that we could capture that on film. So all of that is going to be a part of it. And one of the beautiful voices, Dr. Kathleen Wolfe, has been studying how urban green spaces affect the health and well-being of individuals throughout the nation and actually the world. She's well-known, globally well-known. And so her voice is very prominent in this film as well. And so the idea is bringing this practice back. Now, there are many forest therapy guides throughout the world practicing in different kind of modalities. And so the idea is bringing this practice and this model back to the US. And my twist on that, so to speak, is that I have this vision that I'm manifesting right now of incorporating a senior living community inside of the forest therapy center, because we know the stress and anxiety associated with being in some of these spaces. And in many cases, these elders are spending 95% of their time indoors, when in all actuality, we as humans need to be outdoors as much as possible.
Yes.
Historically, 100% of our time before societies really began to form. And also the care staff. It is a stressful job. And there, you have to nurture yourself in order to have a nurturing nature about you that allows you to nurture others. And so this vision is bringing these two together, the forest therapy or forest healing centers and these elder communities of care that support this nurturing nature concept, so that the people living in these sites actually have a connection to nature and to these programs that were developed for seniors and from cradle to grave. So offering these opportunities to corporate entities where they bring in, this is what they do in Korea, they'll bring in corporate leaders and they'll have like 2 to 3 day programs all focused on forest therapy to bring people back into balance, because there's a tremendous amount of research in which they have been engaged that shows that these experiences help to propel creativity, productivity. They help to recenter and realign people so that they can go back and be rejuvenated in these corporate settings and be much more productive and better employees and better leaders. So this is not kind of all encompassing. It's not just for, one audience. Everybody needs nature and everybody needs their dose of nature. So this is the concept of the film, and we're excited that it was accepted to launch at the second international conference on forest therapy at the University of British Columbia in August. And so we plan to be there to launch the film and also show it at the second World Forum on Forest Therapy from October 27th to 30th, 2025. And so we're excited to kind of just have this blossom even more and just continue the effort to be able to bring forest therapy in a different way and a more profound way, so to speak, as we open the petals of this practice and start to really realize the importance to every human of nature connection.
And they're also creating now, I know you were taking up a new class, and this is, they're bringing in new model structures to bring indoors into these city buildings for employment. Tell me a little bit about that. I can't say the word. Tell me the word. It's
Sure.
called.
Yes, I'm enrolled in a biophilic design course with the Biophilic Design Institute, and it has just been fascinating. So we as humans, when we design, sometimes we don't consider the natural world around us in those designs. And so Nicole Cranen is the instructor in this course. She's created this course, and it's the idea of bringing nature into spaces and from the initial concepts of design, so that you have nature both in the exterior realm of their buildings, of these built environments, and also in the interior structure, because humans need nature. And so if we can incorporate nature into these built environments, we're going to again have much better cognitive function in these spaces. It will help to reduce stress and anxiety. It's the way of design, and often we'll be bringing stakeholders in, for instance, the employees and the leadership and maybe community members who utilize those spaces, and they'll have design charrettes that help people to share what is important about nature to them. Some people, like you mentioned, open spaces and how you would go and sit in the space where you could look out and see water. So water is often one of those really critical components. Also, different colors and textures, sounds. Birdsong and the sound of running water are two of the most powerful and healing sounds in nature. So being able to incorporate some of those things into the built environment can actually create a better work environment, reduce stress and anxiety, again, more productivity, higher levels of creativity. And there are many major corporations like Amazon and some Zappos. I believe they were some that brought nature inside. Now, if you go into hospitals, oftentimes those that are very advanced and intuitive in knowing that nature does help to heal, and it also helps to reduce stress and anxiety. You'll see nature kind of biophilic design in airports nowadays. I know here in Knoxville, I'm in Tennessee right now, that airport offers that. Atlanta is another one that they've just started to create these little urban forests inside of these spaces. Korea, another one in South Korea, in that airport. I mean, just nature is everywhere because they know it helps to reduce stress and anxiety in these spaces. And so there are many corporations that are integrating this because they know it's going to help retain employees. I mean, who doesn't want better retention. It also, again, helping to boost creativity and bringing people together in these spaces, in these interior biophilic design spaces, can really help to inspire a lot of creative energy. And it is energy, right? I mean, it's like vibrational energy that you're bringing into the interior space. And now with the elder communities of care, I've been working with them to bring nature inside as well, because sometimes it's hard to get elders out during certain times of year. And so to bring that in so that they have a constant opportunity for nature connection, different aromas, different touch, tactile is really important. Also the visual, how we move through spaces is very important in terms of how our neurological function is linked to the physiological function and hormonal imbalances. Oftentimes, if we're stressed, we have really difficult sounds to deal with, different aromas that are negative to our systems. Those can cause a lot of anxiety and stress, and therefore a great deal of public health issues. So being able to incorporate these green spaces inside and out is just yet another, I think, way that corporations are going to be able to step into at the forefront of this movement. And biophilic design has been around for quite some time, but I think it's a resurgence of that. And I know a number of people in urban areas who are focused on that type of urban design. So we're just hopeful to see more of that.
Yes, yes. And I hope it's more in a place for employees, not so much as welcoming to the public as they're entering the building, because then it's not a place where the employees can really hang out and really receive what's coming off of all that green zone. And, without that green zone, there's a lot of cognitive overload that making it harder for employees to really, focus and concentrate, just like you said, the reduction in productivity. When you do have these great energies flowing through, that energy productivity increases. And it's so important to see, because there's so much of a loss of women in menopause and perimenopause going and calling in, and again, we're losing productivity. And it's so important to have all these things in place, especially because, like I said, women are really big in the big labor force, and without recognizing all these subtle symptoms, that's the danger about this, because perimenopausal women, as they're decreasing in that estrogen, it's exacerbating that inflammation, but they don't see it that way. And when you go to see the doctor, there's levels checked, but the conversation of, hey, how's my inflammation doing today? That's not a common, question. And that's why I am excited to bring this awareness and get people to prepare for this, because it is a very important step to take, to have the body cleaned of all this, to have good energy flowing, to reduce that, especially women. Once we're in that menopausal stages, we're at a higher risk of cardiac issues and inflammation. Huge, inflammation's big, with breast cancer. I mean, cancer is created out of a lot of chronic inflammation because of the destruction. I mean, it just breaks it down, and it's just unbelievable what can be done. And, this is why when women and people come into this workforce, it's important to have these cares, and people themselves need to make these choices until it's developed in these big urban communities. You know what I mean? We still have that choice to go find a place to protect that peace. And it's just so good to be talking to you about this. I'm really happy, and thank you so much for bringing all this great information today. I'm looking forward to, because we will have Dr. Tamberly coming back. We're going to have a big issue on senior care. This is going to be really big when I start talking about that, because of menopausal women. And, what we don't want to do is end up in that. We want to hopefully walk this road all the way where we're going to be taking care of ourselves, because we're becoming stronger, enlightened, getting more awareness to prepare ourselves. So how do you envision women thriving through this in the future?
And I wonder, Lisa, if I might just add one more thing, because I realized I'm doing it right now. I'm grounding. I'm actually sitting on the ground. I've took my shoes off, and we need to re-energize our bodies. We place something between our feet and the ground all the time. And you talked about inflammation, and that's one thing that can help to reduce our inflammation. In South Korea, they've actually created walking trails that are for barefoot walking. They were immersing themselves in mud. If you can do it even in the moist kind of grass and soil, it's even more conductivity. So I know we hear about it and sometimes it sounds woo-woo, but it's not woo-woo anymore.
It's
There's
not.
really scientific
Listen,
evidence. Yes.
yes,
So
food is medicine, nature's medicine. I mean, we need to get in contact with that because so much is commercialized and processed and it's taking away who we truly are. I mean, we're even losing so much with sunlight, I mean, you have to stay out of it. You have to protect yourself. You have to. So there's things we have to do. Tamara, again, it's been such a pleasure. I'm loving this. I know we can talk about this long time. So thank you again for joining us. Thank you everyone again for joining me on this episode. And I'm looking forward to seeing you again soon, Tamberly, and from prconnectionsradio.com. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Take care and have a good, happy Easter this weekend.
PR Connections Radio thanks you for watching this podcast. Check out more episodes of this show and our others at prconnectionsradio.com.